Humility is the biggest learning, I think, and the hardest as well. Your help and your course, Marek, were very helpful in a way that I didn't expect. I signed into your course because I wanted to know the know-how, the skills that would help me write efficiently in a more effective way than I was at that stage.
Congratulations. I hear that you graduated with a PhD and got good feedback on your Viva. How does that feel?
Well, I'm about to graduate, but then again, it's just a technicality. I got great feedback from my readers. They were absolutely amazing, very generous, very good readers, and very sympathetic towards the effort I put towards writing this thesis. I think they were very appreciative about some of its strengths. They also made brilliant suggestions as to how to make it more coherent in terms of an argument. And well, I'm very grateful for that. But yes, it is the end of a stage and the beginning of another, perhaps a summit that leads to another summit.
You said you got great feedback. What particularly did they appreciate about your thesis or about your research work, I suppose?
I think it is very original because it is very imitative. That's a Girardian joke. My approach to philosophy comes very near the steps of René Girard, whom I followed to a great extent. And his mimetic theory is all about imitation. So I asked questions that I don't think people had asked before. So I asked, how is it that T.S. Eliot became a mystic? That's a general question everyone's asked. But then the originality, I think, comes from the answer. And I have planned to do the common route of talking about John of the Cross, whom he quotes extensively in the four quartets, and whom he writes about, and he's engaged with the thought of John of the Cross. But then I found in his letters one where he declared that he was somehow beyond the experience of the world that he personally had, and that his friend, whom he was writing to, had as well. And that made me notice that whereas everyone knew that Eliot was a big fan of Dante, no one had really picked up how his mysticism is particularly copied from Dante's mysticism. Because Dante is another person who, like Eliot, is very much engaged in the issues, in the matters of this world, and who is also a poet. So he's a layman as well, just like Eliot was. And so he could relate to him in a way that he couldn't to others. And I realized he is his model. The poetic model of T.S. Eliot is Dante. And that's been remarked already many times, and everybody knows that. But the scholarship tends to focus mostly on how Eliot is imitating Dante's craftsmanship as a poet, and some topics, of course, and some issues like that. But I realized that, okay, Eliot is copying Dante's mystic theology, his conception of the soul, or of the organization of virtues, or his description of the hierarchies of heaven and hell. But I think that what Eliot got from that was the common Christian experience that Dante is trying to convey. But the particular contribution I think my thesis was able to make was that the realization that Eliot took Dante as a model for spirituality, and then he adapted that model of spirituality for the present. for his time, and he somehow, like Dante did to his time, suggested the mystic theology, which is a tradition that stems from Paul, probably, and from Paul's mystical experience in Damascus, and therefore is inherited in a way by all the entire Christian.
Was that like a challenge, or was that an advantage for your research, or both?
I think that both. I think that in the first place, I thought I had an advantage because I already had a great familiarity with the tradition of mysticism in poetry, and particularly within Christianity. So I was already very familiar with the same sources that both Eliot and Dante have in common, and I think that's a trend for my research. However, I think that I gave that strength up very soon in the game. When I first planned the thesis, it was going to be very straightforward because John of the Cross, he wrote his poems, but then he explained what he meant with those poems. And he explained it with a very characteristic scholastic way of approaching things. That's very analytic, very immediate, and also very academic, so very scholarly. So he's giving you his quotes and his references.
Yeah, let's talk about the word journey that I think you used earlier on when we were speaking, that it's been a journey, and it's end of one journey, maybe another journey begins. So what have you learned from that journey in terms of doing a PhD, writing a thesis that then gets like really good comments from your reviewers? What have you learned from that you could share with other PhD students?
Humility is the biggest learning, I think, and the hardest as well. For me, a PhD has been humbling. Beyond anything else, it has also been enlightening. It has also been many other things, interesting, disparaging at times, but mostly humbling. People who cannot take the criticism tend to give up and become destroyed by that. So I think that the hardest lesson is probably that the fact that you live in a world that's not perfect, and that not everything is going to be okay, or not in the way you expected it was going to be. So there were many challenges along the way, beginning with funding. My funding wasn't enough, so I had to work like full-time jobs. There's also been some challenging personal situations, like the hospitalization of some relatives and of myself. COVID happened, of course. It wasn't easy to find time just to write and to focus and to do the work, right? And go over and over, writing and rewriting. And by the end, I think I produced like 10 times the amount of text I ended up delivering. So when you see it in perspective, there's a lot of effort that seems to go nowhere. And in that respect, I think that your help and your course, Marek, were very helpful in a way that I didn't expect. I signed into your course because I wanted to know the know-how, the skills that would help me write efficiently in a more effective way than I was at that stage. Not that I didn't write already, not that I hadn't produced texts before, but I realized that I had to learn a very specific way of writing that was expected of me in the UK that wouldn't be expected of me elsewhere in terms of the style. So I wanted to know how to adopt a style, but I ended up finding that the life hacks were probably the things that helped me the most within the context of this busy schedule, finding a way of making it work and of making it work in a sustainable, systematic way in which I would be producing regardless of my motivation. And my supervisor was adamant that I should start writing from the beginning, even when I didn't feel I had the complete picture. So in the end, what happened, I think, was a negotiation where I started trying to conform to those standards, and it took me long enough. I think that's probably what helped me back the most in terms of efforts of time.
Tell us a little bit more about the life hacks. What's like one or two life hacks that you could share with other PhD students who, I think a lot of them doing PhD either have a part-time job or a full-time job. A lot of people do work. So what sort of life hacks did you learn that helped you to produce writing on a regular basis?
I guess in a way, taking my PhD seriously enough to leave other things unattended. And that's what we have to prioritize. So for instance, at this stage, before I went into the course, I was teaching 6 modules at the university in Mexico online, which is the other work I had. And this is a very posh university where students think that they're clients and they want answers and they want them now. So they will write to your WhatsApp, they will write to your email 6-7 times a day because they wanted to do this or that. And oftentimes it's just something that is already on Canvas, or that's not the proper channel. But the professor ends up, or the lecturer ends up spending a ridiculous amount of time just attending to those things that are not even like proper grading or time of the lecture. So what I did was I copied the office hours model, and I gave them the opportunity to book, if they wanted, 10-15 minutes meetings with me.
What you say, because you're basically creating systems for your own work. I think sometimes, a lot of us think that, we need to work more and we need to work harder in order to be able to do all those extra things. But what you're doing here is, in a way, you're creating time that didn't exist before by, for example, systematizing an activity, or maybe eliminating something or automating something, so that you can attend to the priority, which for you was writing at the time. So I think that's a great hack.
I had to keep up with the feeling that I was doing something I shouldn't do, because the rest were actually doing this time-consuming, one-by-one reply to everyone, and they were getting better reviews from the students as well. So most of the students didn't like my style, and that was counterproductive in the midterm, right? So if an administrative says, "Okay, but this is not what we're paying the professor for or the lecturer for," telling you where the bathroom is, just see the sign. But if there's another administrator that says, "Well, that's what I'm paying you for, even if it's not in the contract, you should do this, and you should know that's something, the way things are done here," then you can get sacked. So that's the danger of it, I guess, for me. Or what I thought was the danger, anyway, that they would end up giving me the boot because I wasn't tending to their every need. But I think that in the end, people were reasonable about that, and it also changes the pace, the time space for them. Like, there's nothing that important.
I think that what you said about urgency, like the policy, for example, that we have at Academic English now, that we aim to give you feedback within 3 working days, because you have to set some boundaries. And nothing really. I mean, it's not a house on fire that I need to reply like in
Yes,
this
exactly.
very moment, right?
Yeah.
So, and unless you set those boundaries, whatever you're doing in life, I think you might end up on this, this just hamster wheel where you're just constantly working more and more and more and more hours, but you're not actually producing what you're supposed to be producing with your thesis or your papers, because you find yourself attending to administrative tasks, replying to emails every day, and really thinking that I must reply right now because that's what everybody else is doing. But that's not necessarily the case. So that's a beautiful life hack. And what's next for you? Tell us a little bit more, just to finish the journey, I suppose. What's next? Are you planning to stay at university? What's the next journey that you're embarking on?
Well, simultaneous to my PhD, I embarked on another journey with the publishing house. I've been an editor for half of my life at this point, for like 20 years. But some 6 years ago, together with some friends, we decided to open a publishing house, Alios Ventos Ediciones. And it's a very small operation at the present. We've only gotten 20 books published or so in this little time. But it's an independent project, and we're aiming at doing something.
You say small, but I think very few people can say they helped to publish 20 books. So that's well done. I know that there are huge publishing houses that publish thousands or millions or whatever it is. I think that's awesome.
Well, I've also published hundreds of articles, so I realize the scale is not so big at present, but the black matter is enough or what we've done now is enough for us to try and get into the scientific databases and indexes. So that's the next step I expect. In Latin America, the open access movement has been very strong, and it works very well for journals, but it's nowhere to be seen when it comes to publishing scholarly books, academic books. Most universities and academic publishing houses in Latin America continue working on the traditional model of selling paper here and there. So that's the way it works. They continue doing big prints and sending those books everywhere, distributing, selling, and making a living out of it, which is great. I wish I could do that as well. We don't have that strength to do that sort of thing. But we do have the possibility in the present of getting anyone who wants it, a printed version of the book, in even the paperback and the hardcover are available for whomever wants to buy it and get it in their hands. And we also have a very beautiful design made by Teresa Camacho and Felix Beltran and Juan Antonio Garcia, who are great designers. So the book design of our books is great. It's beautiful, the layout and the covers and everything. But we are also give them for free for anyone to read. They are open access. So we're advocates of open access, because in Latin America, I think it is a matter of justice, of social justice, because the industry of book publishing is actually a very good one. It makes big bucks for many people, and the prices at which these publications are available. When we're talking about Routledge, Wiley, the big players, those books cost a fortune. only the universities can afford to buy them. And it makes sense that they are in the libraries of universities and not in the personal bookshelves of everyone, unless they are a researcher that cares so much about that topic that wants to have that copy. So what really matters, I think, is not who benefits from the industry. What really matters is knowledge and the transmission of knowledge, the communication of knowledge, the conversation about what we know about. And that happens in journals, and that happens also in books. And the easiest way of getting to them is via indexes, scientific indexes and databases, because that's where scientific publication lives in a way that's its natural place. So we're trying to take our books there and to make them open access for everyone. And this is revolutionary in in Latin America. And even in Spain, that's not something that most scholarly publishing houses do. So the next thing is creating a revolution for social justice and access to knowledge in Latin America. Open access movement.
Yeah, this resonates with me very much, and I could talk for hours about the problems with how expensive academic books are, articles, and there are so many really hundreds or millions of people in the world who just can't afford and don't have access to to academic articles, to books, and it just further perpetuates inequality, right? Because even many universities don't have the money to purchase those expensive books, and therefore the PhD students who study there don't have access to those books or articles. So I think what you're doing is fabulous, and we'll put the link to the publishing house as well, to the website in the description of the video, so people can check it out if you're interested in it. And then if anyone listening wants to work with us, like Juan Manuel did, to finish your PhD, write papers, then you can schedule a free one-to-one consultation. The link is right below. We're going to look at the challenges that you have right now, what it is that you want to achieve, and see if working together is a good fit. And yeah, fabulous work. Congratulations again, Juan Manuel, and very exciting project with the publishing house.
Thanks, Marek.